All right. There you go. Yeah, don't worry about the in-game sound. It's by design. The in-game sound has been muted for now, so we can have a better chat. There you go. Anyway, welcome everybody to the stream. Today is review day for, of course, Dragon Age the Veilguard. Now, you will see some gameplay here in the background, which is from our record session back earlier last month. But basically, we're going to talk about the reviews. Now, as you probably saw my post, we did not get one. So, probably going to get one maybe on the 30th. I'm not completely certain about that. But I'm gonna do my best to drop with the content and all of that, and I'm going to post my review after 100% completion. I will not put an early review. I'm not going to get a review out just to get ahead of anybody. I'm going to wait until I completely finish the game 100%, go through the entire content, and then I'm gonna speak my mind on it. So, yeah. Not really a big problem, but today we do have some interesting things to talk about, because it seems not everybody got a review code. And the problem is that some of my favorite reviewers did not get the code. This includes Skill Up, ACG, Factual Life, pretty much everybody. So what the heck is going on? That's basically what I'm trying to get at right here, and we're gonna jump into reviews in just a little bit. Also, I want to thank everybody who tuned in the stream, and I hope you're all enjoying yourselves, which is not normal. So yeah, just not getting reviews out at this stage for some of the most notorious folks who get reviews for every game. It just doesn't make any sense. Khraze will platinum the game first. Yes, absolutely. Raw Extreme, I'm going to try to... Well, maybe not platinum the game, but to be honest, if it's 100% completion, it's probably going to be platinum. But I'm going to only give my opinion on the game after 100% completion. So that's what I'm trying to do. How much time is left for the reviews? About 15 minutes, give or take. That's when we're gonna get it. And also on the same note, I do want to go ahead and check out some of the stuff on Twitter. So I'm not sure if this information has been confirmed by SkillUp himself. So I'm just going to switch it right here. But I know that ACG did not get it. So ACG, I didn't get a Dragon Age the Veilguard code, but be aware if you see me reviewing smaller games versus big ones many times, it's because I said yes to the smaller company prior to the large company's communication. I refuse to leap to a bigger game if I already said yes. No, that's not the case here. So that is the comment. So full transparency, it's possible that ACG just had other commitments. He had other games that got priority because of his personal schedule. So it may be that he still got a game, an early review code of Dragon Age the Veilguard, but chose to go with a smaller indie company instead. Now, I did see a code, a post of somebody implying that Skill Up, and what the hell is this feed, dude? Of Skill Up not getting one, which is very interesting, but it's like pretty much full commercials. I don't even know, dude. So let me see. Does Skill Up have anything on that? Because I'm not okay. This was the post. Not serving review codes to F Extra Life. Okay. That was, yeah, we already know that F Extra Life didn't get a review code, which is a shame. Like some of the folks I've been waiting for have not gotten a review. Keeping an eye out for Skill Up's review. So who knows? Maybe they got it. I'm not really sure exactly. I saw a freaking post, but it doesn't seem to be there anymore. So I'm not completely, I don't know. It is possible, but who knows? Things change so fast, it's very unpredictable. Right. So KhrazeGaming, ACG's first sentence said he didn't get a code. Yeah, I mean, that was my initial reaction, but he said it was not the case there, so I'm not sure exactly. Like, is that true? Rick's Game Misc? Dev should stop giving codes anyway. All people do is complain and mess up sales. Understanding, to be honest, I think I agree with you. I think that early review codes are just not great. As somebody who's been in the space for a while and been doing all of this, I think that review codes are just trash. And what is this feed, dude? What is this feed? Why am I seeing this? Like, I swear Twitter is some of the worst website I've seen. All right, let's go on Metacritic. Metacritic should get an update in about 15 minutes at this point. So I think that we had a post somewhere. Let me just see if I can find it. Review. Veilguard reviews. When are they going out? Forbes. I think it was in 15 minutes precisely. This is the only confirmation I got. So basically Monday, October, 8 a.m. PT. So I'm pretty sure that we're like 10 minutes away from that. But here's the thing. If nobody got any review keys from the big creators, from the big influencers, because let's be honest, I mean, personally, those are the only reviews I trust. Like, when I watch a game, even if I buy a game and I'm not convinced on it, seeing some of the creator reviews compared to some of the big outlets usually gives me better peace of mind. That's just me personally. And then I watch the review scores of folks who actually got their hands on the game. But this is a big L from EA, basically, and BioWare. Luke Stevens asked for one, and they didn't give him one either. Lol, for real? They didn't give him one either? Why? Because he was too critical? I feel they are only giving codes to people that will only say all positive reviews. So here's the thing. I didn't get a review code, and I think that I was quite fair in my early preview of the game. Like, we talked about how the gameplay seemed fun to us. It was Zane who went there in my stead because I couldn't make it. I couldn't make the trip. But watching the reviews, watching the gameplay, I mean, our own preview and like the gameplay he had, we both agreed that gameplay-wise it looked interesting. It looked fun. But I did have a few points of criticism, but they were quite small. So they weren't that big, to be honest. They were like mostly related to... I said something along the lines that I think it's a mistake for them to remove that tactical camera. I thought the character faces didn't look good, but the character creator looked like it had enough things to fiddle with. And I should have technically qualified, but I don't really care. Let's just make one thing clear. For the majority of my YouTube career, I did not get review codes for any game. And when I did, it was on the day of launch. I do not need a review code. I never needed a review code to build this channel up. And for 90% of my time being a YouTuber, I only got review codes on the day of launch. I kid you not. Every company I ever worked with, they would be like, you're gonna get a review code on the day of launch. I don't need it on the day of launch. I can buy the game myself. I have an account on New Zealand. I can get the game earlier. This is how I get 90% of my review code, guys. I buy the game in New Zealand and play it 12 hours in advance. That is it. Lightsaber, I still like your videos, not care much about other reviews or generally. Lightsaber, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. But you should still focus on just going through every source. Watch every review. Make an informed decision. It's not 10 years ago. It's important to check every single source. If you're not convinced on a game, do not give any money to any company unless you're 100% sure you're going to enjoy it. Even my opinions, they are my opinions and they may be wrong. As much as I enjoy some stuff, some of you may not enjoy that. Like, I have maybe different definitions of fun, and I value my time differently than you. That is it. I just value we are a very different kind of folks, you and I. Because I spend my time playing video games, and the majority of you may not. So that's a big difference. What do you think can be Veilguard's strongest aspect? Michael L., from the looks of what I've seen so far, I think that the gameplay, like, just generally speaking, it's just the gameplay. Like, just the combat. They borrowed a lot from Mass Effect Andromeda. They added that combo system. But, like, everything else, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's so and so. Some folks don't care about the art style. Some do a lot. A lot more people do care a lot more about the art style than others who don't. And I think that both of those opinions are valid. If you don't enjoy how the game looks and you genuinely don't like it, there's no reason to buy it if you don't enjoy it. But I think that's the strongest aspect of it. And it's like the only strong aspect that I mentioned in my early preview as well. It was the only one I was confident in, the gameplay, the combat. So yeah, it's 5 minutes. 5 minutes until we actually get to see the reviews. Interesting votes over here. So most of you guys are actually betting on 70 to 80 or 80 to 90. I'm just going to say this. I wanted to say this from the very beginning, but all of these reviews that you're seeing today are not for you. These are for the shareholders. These reviews that you're going to see in 5 more minutes are not user reviews, are not consumer reviews. They are purely shareholder reviews. I'm calling it a 75. I think it's actually going to score better in the first day because most of the folks who would be critical of the game are kind of in a checkmate right now because they can't post their reviews. Unless I'm mistaken, maybe they got it in the past, I don't know, day. I haven't kept up with that. I didn't vote, sorry, I don't care about what it gets. Yeah, I think that's a very solid way of doing it. A very good conclusion. It doesn't matter what the game reviews today. If you don't like it, don't get it. Like, when I watch... like, imagine buying a product. Do you buy the product because some YouTuber says you want to buy it? Or because they praise it? No, you filter by reviews. You watch reviews from folks who actually got it. And even then, you might not make a 100% decision. So yeah. Game gets 90 today. It also gets 40 from players. Depends if you want to believe into a booming or pay to get scores. It's very hard to say that. I think that the game is actually going to be somewhere in the middle of where folks are going to score it and where the media is going to score it. Like, it's just one of those games that's very divisive. Like, media probably gives it very high scores and everybody else, yeah. Now I can put a face to the voice, DJ. Man, gonna have to do more of these live streams because a lot of folks... a lot of folks actually have not seen me streaming because a lot of you are actually new subscribers. I have no faith in critic reviews anymore since Starfield, Concord, and Star Wars. Yeah, absolutely. I think Concord was a big, like just a big blow to all the review scene. It pretty much completely shattered any remaining confidence in the reviews of big outlets, to be honest. First time seeing a face. I should do face reveals more often, dude. Because I haven't been doing this in like freaking years. I definitely think that not giving out more codes is weird, especially with them holding the previews so far ahead. Game should be ready. Why no reviews? Jason, that's pretty much with 99. I mean, you should know because you're a YouTuber. How many companies have ghosted you or given you review codes when asking them I'm talking about the big ones. Like, how many of them give you? Because it's probably very few. And it's always the same excuse. Oh, we don't have enough. We don't have enough freaking reviews. Just generate more. Just press the button 5 more times. All right. Few more minutes. We should get it. Do we have any Veilguard reviews? Okay, The Guardian put it up 57 minutes ago. But it was removed. Okay. Okay. So no, nothing up yet. Nothing on Metacritic. It is what it is. That is basically just a waiting game. But my prediction, which may be wrong, is that the game will score about 85 in the initial media reviews. Unless something goes horribly wrong. And then when the real reviews come out, it may drop a little bit. I'm not sure if IGN would dare give it a 9 out of 10. But they've been quite big fans of it. And I can see why they've been big fans. I mean, it's obvious why IGN of all outlets are big fans of it. Dantix review. Do we have reviews? All right, let's see. Veilguard reviews. Okay, this is not okay. Oh, okay. I thought it was a review, but it's not. Sorry about that. We have a before you buy, but this is like 11 days ago. I'm not seeing any reviews, to be honest. Like, do you guys any? Okay, IGN 9 out of 10. Okay. So 88 out of 10. We were not that bad. Not that far away. Our prediction was what? 85 out of 10 out of 100. So 85, but instead it gets an 88. Let's see IGN's review. What the hell is this? Have they not put it out? What? I cannot write today, dude. $88. So yeah, 85 was not that far off the mark, to be honest. It may drop a few more points in the next few hours, but let me see. Do we find... let's go with the worst of the reviews. I think the IGN... Okay, Windows Central gave it an 8 out of 10. Hold up. Okay, so more reviews are actually loading in. So the combat is widely different, and the tone varies, but the characters here are the same vital, meaningful core that BioWare is known to deliver, while far removed in many ways from the fantasy franchise I grew up loving. Dragon Age the Veilguard takes its place by prior adventures in Thedas with pride. Like the hero, whatever, Hawk, and the Inquisitor before them, Rook, which, okay, shows that Dragon Age isn't out of tricks just yet. Sounds promising. Sounds quite promising, but why can I not open the article? Like that. Okay, full review. If you guys see the IGN review up, let me know in the comments. I have not seen it yet, so it doesn't appear in my feed. Unless I'm completely and utterly blind. Okay, wait, hold on, because they post 32 seconds ago. Fortnite. Am I blind? BioWare is back, just made Andromeda once again. Oh, snap. Alright, let's just read the review. So this is the more critical review, and an 8 out of 10. Pros, gorgeous art direction. Cap, fun action combat. Agreed. Fantastic characters, I don't know. Cons, uneven story reveals and pacing. That is actually that was a criticism that I've heard from quite a few creators. Lack of strategic combat options. Finally, someone agrees with me. The tactical camera should have stayed in the game. I hope there's a mod for it. So I land 3 headshots in a row, crippling the Venatori mage that's right in front of me. I backflip to get away from the fireball. Okay, let me actually go up. Did I miss something? Okay, no, that's just the description. Being set aflame, my already low health burning away. Calling on my necromancer friend Emrich to heal me, I have my scout Harding land a heavy blow. So this is probably like early-ish game, finishing the mage off and winning the battle. So go the adventures of Rogue, latest in a long line of characters forced or fated to save Thedas, the setting for BioWare's Dragon Age franchise. Dragon Age the Veilguard marks the 4th entry, blah blah blah, in this new game. Okay, I want opinions, not history. So the author just saying that the franchise is close to their heart and has been since I stayed up all night playing the first game, Dragon Age Origins, falling in love with the tale of Darkspawn, Grey Wardens, and so on. Okay, so here's the interesting part. Dragon Age the Veilguard streamlines a number of things with breadneck pacing and an action-packed focus that makes this game in many ways closer tonally to BioWare's Mass Effect 2 than other Dragon Age titles. Which, I guess it makes sense. That's been quite obvious. The story, while intriguing, doesn't always give its earth-shattering reveals time to marinate or focus. At its heart, however, is a cast of characters among BioWare's finest, with bonds that carry this new journey to greatness. Which is really interesting because I thought that the characters... I didn't feel a connection to the characters, to be honest. I did not like most of them. So, that's just my impression. I want to see some of the bigger outlets. So what do we have? Still no reviews out. Am I going insane? Veilguard was designed to play like Mass Effect, so it makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Like, this is Mass Effect Dragon Age. Dragon Age effect. This is what it is. Okay. So Dragon Age Veilguard is an action role-playing game developed by blah blah blah. Crafting a player's character. Okay. Going over the character creation. You'll make decisions who to befriend and possibly romance while completing main missions and side quests across different regions, with your decisions affecting individuals and entire nations alike. We did have a big decision in the preview, which I'm not going to spoil, but it was big. But I'm not sure how many of them there are left in the game. Altering the Dragon Age formula, the Veilguard leans in heavier than ever before on action, prioritizing moment-to-moment gameplay and reactive skill usage over tactical thinking and extensive preparation. That's fair. 10 years after Veilguard. Okay. The Elven God of Trickery and Deceit has many names, but only one goal: to tear down the veil separating the world of Thedas from the Fade. I kind of wish they didn't go over all the history. Okay, so given Rook's role in opposing Solas, this game was once named Dragon Age Dreadwolf after the antagonist. The relationship between the two is fascinating to see unfold. So here's talking about our, the Rook and Solas dynamic. And while I don't want to spoil anything in particular, it's one of the most rewarding relationship dynamics I've seen in a BioWare game. The decade-long wait for longtime fans paid off, and I found myself shedding a tear or two while experiencing the story unfold. That doesn't sound too bad. Ooh, skill up is up. Let's see, baby. I hope it doesn't copyright strike games and videos. Dragon Age. I do not recommend Dragon Age the Veilguard.
This video is brought to you by Brilliant. Pick up a new skill or just learn more about things like science, math, engineering, computer science, and so much more thanks to Brilliant's accessible and interactive courses. Try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for 30 days and get 20% off an annual subscription by visiting brilliant.org/skillup. Click the link below to get started or stick around to the end of the video to learn more. I want to begin this review the same way I did my Final Fantasy 16 review, which is to say that reviews are opinions. This is my opinion and my opinion only. I expect that there will be a broad range of opinions on Dragon Age the Veilguard, and I encourage you to seek them out. I do not have a monopoly on truth. As I've said many times before, I'm just a nerd with a microphone and a YouTube account. My opinion is no more or less valuable than anybody else's. Okay? Alright, so Dragon Age the Veilguard is a colossal disappointment. I really can't put it any other way.
Oh boy.
I spent 50 hours playing this, and it was time I desperately wished that I could get back. I started having my doubts at around the 10-hour mark. I was thoroughly checked out at the 20-hour mark, and the remaining 30 hours were just excruciatingly painful as I was forced to suffer through the endless morass of banality that is Dragon Age the Veilguard.
Yo.
In many ways, Veilguard is a bigger disappointment than Anthem was. Like, if I was to hand LeBron a tennis racket, I'd expect to see some pretty shitty tennis. BioWare never had any business making a looter shooter, and so when Anthem flopped, its failure was easily explained, easily reconciled. But if I hand LeBron a basketball, I expect to see some fucking points on the board. And
yo, he's bringing the smoke. Like, he's bringing the smoke, all the smoke. Holy shit.
It's impossible to imagine a bigger home court advantage than this for BioWare. The Dragon Age franchise, one of their most beloved and most successful. No pressure from EA to cram in all sorts of live service bullshit like it was meant to have at one point, but they pivoted away from that years ago. There's no in-game cash up here. There was obviously plenty of development time and budget. There was the freedom for BioWare to make a BioWare-ass BioWare game without any compromises and without any excuses. In no way, shape, or form did BioWare meet the moment and capitalize on the opportunity that was handed to them. Dragon Age the Veilguard apes the most superficial elements of a BioWare game, making no effort to modernize what is a now fairly dated formula, while delivering absolutely none of the writing, characterization...
Okay, I'm not going to watch his old video. Obviously, go and watch SkillUp's video on his channel. I want to see the conclusion. But his intro remark about the game is like... Dude, this is why I freaking love this channel, dude. This is why I love this reviewer. Let me see the conclusion, and then we're gonna jump onto other reviews. I'm not gonna stay like an hour to check it. Like, check his channel, okay? He deserves it. Like this is a bold move. May burn some bridges, but who knows? I don't think it does. It doesn't matter for him. Like, he's the top reviewer anyway.
Watching this review, please go and seek out the more positive ones as well. Find people with whom this game resonated, because this game might resonate with you too. And as I've said many times before, I would hate for my take to deprive you of an experience that you might love. For me though, Dragon Age the Veilguard was so disappointing that I cannot muster any enthusiasm or excitement for the Mass Effect project BioWare are working on. I hope they get the chance to make that game, and I hope it succeeds where Veilguard failed. But if either of those things are to happen, it's going to be against all odds, because I think Veilguard will mark a permanent shift in the way we talk about BioWare, and it's a shift that makes me really sad.
All right. Yo, not gonna lie, I wasn't expecting that, because I think they had some pretty decent, obviously, like, yo, why am I not subscribed? Obviously, this is a bit of a shock to me, because their initial impressions were quite positive, if I'm not mistaken. Eurogamer gave it a 10. Dude, let's laugh at Eurogamer. Let's laugh at Eurogamer. I want to laugh at Eurogamer and then at IGN. There's no game in the past, maybe except, like, maybe even not Elden Ring, that's a complete 10 out of 10, let's be honest. So 10 out of 10 games blow my mind. I'm not gonna lie. All right. Dragon Age the Veilguard. The best BioWare game I have ever played. Howl about that. I don't think I will. But let's see. There are moments in Dragon Age the Veilguard where all I can do is stop and gawp. I hope I pronounced it right. To see a fantasy adventure brought to life around me at such scale and with such drama is astonishing. I keep expecting the illusion to falter and for the game to tire, but it never does. Complete opposite of the other review. Always the ant is up and the centerpiece grows. Again, whatever this means. What the hell does this mean, dude? Stare openly, okay. I stare openly, hold my breath. I have never been on, on a BioWare ride like this. Really? Really? Dragon Age Origins? Really? You never have been on a BioWare ride like this? But around that is a game of surprising breadth and depth. One I hadn't necessarily expected. I feared the shallow, but there's crunchiness to the role-playing system. I feared the narrow, but there's magnificent world that yawns open as you play. It is as filling as my Dragon Age game before it and every bit of RPG, and yet it's also more. By pushing towards action game territory like Mass Effect before it, Veilguard has realized a physicality and immediacy we've never seen in Dragon Age. And it's freedom that's exhilarating. It pulls up closer to the world and the world-shaking events of the game and what events they are. The Veilguard makes the Dragon Age games that came before it trivial by comparison. I'm sorry guys, but I'm just choking reading this. The series has evolved. Dragon Age has never been this good. I'm not gonna lie, this just sounds like cap, dude. Like even if it was a different game, I don't see it. Sorry about that. I don't see it. We pick events in the Veilguard 10 years after the story of Inquisition, following new hero Rook on the path of our frenemy Solus, the Inquisition companion revealed to be... I can't read today. Ancient Elven God. Okay, again, going over their history. Starting in Mirathas, this is what we knew. So, this has been talked about. Cinematic blend. Okay, here it is. This is how impressive Dragon Age the Veilguard can look. Cinematic blends into helter-skelter traversal. And what? Enlivened by now being able to mantle and contextually leap over obstacles, which then leads into combat with clusters of enemies. I mean, this is nothing groundbreaking, to be honest, like fighting groups of enemies. Really, that's what the article is, what's the name? Gawping over? What I find more impressive, though, is how these big moments are not reserved for the major story beats, but find their way into companion missions and even exploratory side quests. There's generosity right across the game in this regard. Well, I mean, if the game has plenty of side content and the side missions have as much careful planning and work into them as the main mission, then I see that as a benefit. But if the main story is not so great and we have a low bar already, I mean, that doesn't really do anything, to be honest. Oh, the side content is as good as the main story, but the main story is not that great, so that doesn't really help a lot. This is a level of trolling. I get someone can be positive about the game, but this is already trolling. All right. It just looks soulless. More to call it. Okay. Okay, so some reviewers say it's a game of the year for them. Let's see all the reviews. BioWare is back. I'm just gonna watch the conclusion here. Gonna probably get this entire game
There's no easy way to start this review. There are fantasy options aplenty. Metaphor ReFantasio. Elden Ring just got a Shadow of the Erdtree expansion earlier this year. There was also Dragon's Dogma 2. And right now, AAA gaming is going through a massive, massive change where big companies like Bethesda Game Studios, BioWare, Ubisoft really have their back against the wall, and they're not quite the heroes of gaming that they maybe once were. Whereas companies like Larian Studios and CD Projekt Red have solidified themselves as top dogs in the RPG genre, thanks to projects like Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk 2077.
I mean, yeah, but Cyberpunk was probably the most hated game at one point, immediately after launch. So they took, what, a few years to get that goodwill back. Which they did, but it wasn't immediately. Baldur's Gate, on the other hand, was straight out of the gate. Absolutely stellar.
7, The Witcher 3, and so on.
So was Witcher.
There are many great developers rising up in the RPG genre, like Warhorse.
I mean, these companies, CD Projekt Red, Larian Studios, they had a lot of goodwill from their fans because they had serviced very good games in the past. Like before Cyberpunk 2077, there was Witcher 3, which was universally praised as one of the best games of all time, or at least in the past decade. But it was definitely up there with like every top tier game list. Witcher 3 was consistently over there. But BioWare has not put a good game in a decade, at least. It has 2 failed projects before this. And then there's Anthem. IGN gave it a 9 out of 10, and then The Sun and one dude gave it a 6 out of 10. I know that I'm going to stop trusting IGN now, really. I can see why. IGN posted their review. Oh, I want to see IGN. Obviously, check Mr. Matty Plays. Obviously, top solid dude. Absolutely enjoying his reviews. But now I want to laugh at IGN. Ooh. Okay.
As I excitedly slashed, blasted, wooed, looted, and
Okay, let's go over the
way
final part, like just the freaking conclusion.
In life.
enjoyable action combat, a fantastic cast of allies with sweeping story arcs all their own, top-notch cinematics, and moving, nuanced character writing are the wings on which this triumphant dragon soars. Watch the wings! Pulling out all the stops in a whirlwind tour of Northern Thedas, and capping it with a terrific finale that's built on memorably tough choices and consequences. If we never get another Dragon Age, at least it got to go out on a high note.
Even if that means our world has
to
burn.
For more amazing art.
So I think that this is the second outlet review that I'm seeing mentioning that there's a supposed good ending. So I'm not sure exactly what that means because they haven't, obviously it's embargoed, and obviously for spoiler reasons they won't be talking about, but it seems that all of them reference some kind of satisfying conclusion with Solus. Though it's very hard to actually say if we're gonna be of the same opinion when the game comes out. Like, everybody measures these things differently. Like, we had completely divergent opinions, and we checked 4 reviews with 2 separate schools of thought, you know? 2 separate directions they went into. Even if our world has to burn. No, even if another Dragon Age doesn't ever come out, they basically allude to the fact that this is a good way for the series to end, which I would argue is not. Even if the game were genuinely good, I'm not sure about that statement, to be honest. Sparking Zero was a 7, the same as Concord. Yo, dude, you guys are relentless. I'm not gonna lie, completely relentless. Yeah, I think this is going to be the path forward. I think that we're going to actually see how all of this unfolds when people get their hands on the game. I think that we're not going to find out the truth maybe for at least a week after the game comes out, and then everybody plays it, and obviously everybody makes their own opinion. I will say this though, right now, top sellers Steam. There's one thing I'm curious about, and that is, so I'm just gonna give you a metric. It's more of like a gut feeling, but so far it has never failed me in my 5 years of doing content creation. Dragon Age, if it really succeeded, or any game for that matter, I'm gonna just say this: if a game is really universally expected and like the hype is through the roof, if it's sold on Steam, you will see it on top sold Steam games at least a week in advance. I'm just gonna put it out there. I don't want to imply that the game is selling bad. I'm not implying anything. I will just say this: every game I have ever covered was top seller on Steam, if it's sold on Steam, especially one that has no DRM, especially one that has no third-party app, like Dragon Age the Veilguard. Doesn't mean it doesn't sell extremely well maybe on the PlayStation 5 or maybe, I don't know, wherever it comes out on. And the buzz on Reddit around games approaching launch day are usually much bigger. Like you can literally, if you see 1,000 people talking about a game in that game's respective thread, if you see 1,000 people at least a week before the game comes out, that usually means it's usually going to sell very well. That has been my internal metric for many years. It has never failed me. I have always used it. And it's just I may be wrong on that. It may sell 10 million copies. I don't know. I may be wrong. But you have these games that can sell over time, millions of copies. It can totally happen. It may not be a launch success, but maybe with time they become better. But 99% of the games I've covered and have actively watched, and even from those I have not covered and still actively watched, they have met these two criteria. High buzz on Steam, high top seller, and a lot of buzz on Reddit. That is it. Right. There are no microtransactions, which is a win, and yeah, I think that the game should be fairly assessed as well. I think if you look at Veilguard, I think that you should just look at all its positives and all its negatives too. So how much is the story going to impact your enjoyment of it? If you're a Dragon Age fan, probably a lot. If you're a BioWare fan, how much is the gameplay going to impact your enjoyment? Probably even more. At least for me, personally. That's my opinion. But then you have all the other things on top. How user-friendly is it? How greedy is the company in the way they handle the release of this game? What are the other steps that they do to ensure that... to generate profit is basically what I'm trying to get to, but it's not necessarily that. I think that BioWare, to some extent, was forced to show a bit of restraint when it came to all the monetization options they could have had for Dragon Age. Maybe if, I don't know, Anthem succeeded and the initial reception of Dragon Age the Veilguard was different, maybe we would have seen a different version of this. Metacritic PC is down to 75, 79. Okay, that is interesting. Let's check that out. Okay, see, 85. We got close. So I told you it's gonna start high, but then it's going to taper off. This is literally Starfield on launch. Starfield started on a high note. I think it was breaking 88, 90. I don't know. I think it had some pretty big review scores initially. And then literally within an hour, it started tapering off. So it went to 86, 84. I'm not even sure how much it is right now because I haven't kept up with Starfield. Even though I really wanted to freaking love... Oh my god. Ooh, boy. Okay. Okay. Okay, so this is for the Xbox. It's now generally at 83. Mixed on average 6.8. But what the hell is this? Okay, so the PC version of it is always going to get reviewed lower. I'm not sure if there's review bombs over here. Like, it has Starfield. Okay, this is Shattered Space. Never mind. I'm blind. Forget about that. It's the DLC, so obviously that was not that great. But 83, and like I said, starts on a high note, close to 80. I predicted 85. It's dropping, and then said that it would drop below 80, 85 as more reviews come in and days pass. But yeah, it's now like at 84. So yeah, game would probably get much less hate if not pushed so hard and damage control. I think that they should have taken every measure possible to get on, like, just show goodwill, basically what I'm trying to say. I think that after the initial reception, this debacle with the review codes is just hurting them. I think that they should have just shown confidence in the game and just give it to everybody and let it review as it is. I think they would have scored a few more points extra, but who knows. I see 75 being the final score. Okay. It can definitely drop. I mean, within an hour, it dropped 4 points. I can see it dropping. I'm not sure if it's going to reach 75, but I can see it stopping at the 79. I can see that happening, but after the review scores come in, it depends. We do have other reviews over here that I want to go over. So, Dragon Age the Veilguard, big disappointment. We didn't watch his conclusion, so Mr. Matty, I'm gonna obviously check out Mr. Matty Plays video, but I want to see his conclusion.
Single final boil, you pop that one, and then maybe you have access through that same doorway. And it's just these two constantly.
Oh wait, hold up. What did he say? What's this constantly?
Pop these crystals to sometimes pop barriers on enemies, or pop barriers that are blocking doors, or pop barriers that are blocking whatever in front of you, or blight boils that are scattered throughout the environment. You pop those boils, they all centralize around a single final boil, you pop that one, and then maybe you have access through that same doorway. And it's just these two constantly, over and over and over. And when you mix that in with the same enemy types, like, oh, it's the Venatori again, or oh, it's the awful-looking Darkspawn again, or it's the Antom with the awful-looking Qunari again, which I said in my preview already, like, I don't like the redesigns for some of these characters and some of these races. I don't think they're great. It's just, it's repetitive. It's repetitive and uninteresting. And so that's all I got.
That is a very interesting point. Like, watching the review, watching the early gameplay that we had with it, we had a lot. We actually saw these moments that he's talking about, popping crystals and the boils to open up areas ahead. And I was thinking, like, are there any other puzzles, or is this it? And it seems that there's going to be a problem with the puzzles, like a lot of the same repetitive puzzle design. I'm not, like, completely not expecting this in a game like this, to be honest. Like, that's the bane of my existence. I hate puzzles in RPGs and video games and all of that. I really hate puzzles because usually they are very unfun, and just the payoff is usually very small. So yeah, it's a mixed bag for sure. I can see a lot of folks watching the game and having a more critical eye than the usual game. I can see that happening. And I want to see the conclusion also.
I was stopped dead in my tracks, jaw on the floor, for all of the wrong reasons. Like, did they really just do that? And part of it, yeah, man, I'm a huge fan. Like, I'm not going to shy away from that. That's the angle I bring. I love BioWare. I do. But when I felt my opinion in real time for games like Dragon Age Inquisition and Mass Effect Andromeda improving in real time as I was playing Dragon Age the Veilguard, when I was thinking, comparing, contrasting, that's when I knew they had lost me, man. And
wait, what?
It was a really, really sad moment. I felt jaw on the floor.
Wait, what?
Same enemy types, like, oh, it's the Venator. I don't like the redesigns for some of these characters and some of these races. I don't think they're great. It's just, it's repetitive. It's repetitive and uninteresting. And so that's all I got to say. One of my longest reviews I've done, but I felt like a powder keg about the burst. Just playing this game, there were so many times I was stopped dead in my tracks, jaw on the floor, for all of the wrong reasons. Like, did they really just do that?
Okay. So it seems like a pretty negative review. Obviously, seems like a pretty negative. Okay, Dragon Age the Veilguard disaster. Okay, this is something different. Something different. What other reviews do we have, guys? What else can we check out? Like, so far, some of my worst fears came to reality. Like, especially in terms of the enemy design, I was really thinking that, like, Mr. Matty over here obviously talks about repetitive enemy design and, like, fighting the same enemies over and over and repetitive puzzles. That was one of my biggest fears for the game, because, like, obviously we have the gameplay, you have the character redesign, you have the classes, you have the more action-oriented combat, but that doesn't matter if you don't have a challenge. Like, what's the point of being super strong and pulling these flashy moves if all you're doing is fighting the same enemy over and over again and doing the same stuff? Obviously, that's going to put a dent on how much you enjoy a game long time. I think there were a few games in which, like, let's take Elden Ring, for example. Why do you enjoy it for so long? Why do you think you enjoy a game like Elden Ring for so long? It's because it keeps you engaged for a very long time. And why does it do that? It's because you have the constant fear that something is going to absolutely smash your shit if you're not being careful. Something lurking in the shadows, an enemy in the corner, or just a big roaming boss that you're just about to stumble upon in, like, these big fields walking in the open world, and they just jump on you and absolutely smash you. And all of them are super strong, are very variant, like, have a lot of variety to them, and even within the same class they have a lot of variety of moves. Like, how many bosses were you stuck in Elden Ring where you just couldn't nail down the sequence of attacks you needed because they constantly changed things up, constantly mixed attacks up? Even if you had the same types of attacks, they would mix it up. The AI was good. Enemy variety, landscape variety, that is also one of the things. I don't think Veilguard misses that much on environment variety because they have smaller condensed maps anyway. It's more linear, and on top of that it's also pretty much like not open world, and there are multiple maps anyway, so I don't think that's an issue. But if enemy variety is an issue, that's a bigger one. So yeah. You want me to play the video? Which video you want me to play? I know it's not Elden Ring, it's a totally different game, but you can pretty much take the game design, like, it's like a car, dude. It doesn't have to be, like, it doesn't have to have the name on it. It functions similarly. If you take a car and break it down, every single car is made out of 4 wheels, an engine drive, and pretty much, like, everything else from that point on is just cosmetic. And of course the performance. But if you really break it down, it's going to be very similar. So we can still make comparisons even if the genres are going to be different. It's just game design. It's a blueprint. If I build a building, it's going to have walls, it's going to have rooms, it's going to, like, then I'm going to give it a shape maybe. But yeah. Wait, which video you want me to play? Oh, and also, of course, sorry for all of the new members and all of the supers in the chat. So Khalifa, thank you so much for the donation, and I think we actually have 2 from Khalifa. Thank you so much, dude. Really appreciate it. Obviously, absolutely goated. And everybody else is tuning in. Oh, he means the Factual video about how he didn't get a code. Factual Life didn't get a code, okay. I see. I can see why some folks are disgruntled about not getting review codes. I remember something similar like this happening with Starfield. It's literally like watching the same situation unfolding. Like, folks get pissed that they didn't get a review code. The reason why they didn't get it was obviously because of the initial reception. Early previews were not the most stellar, and obviously because those creators would have been a little bit more critical on average. Doesn't mean obviously that whatever we have now in terms of reviews are any less valid. If I don't know, a creator who got it early thinks and believes in that, I don't think they should be reprimanded, to be honest. I think it's their opinion and they can obviously put it out however they see fit. But I can also see it from the perspective of the company, why they chose to do this. Like I said, today's reviews are not for you, they are for the shareholders. It's not for you to judge the product now. It's for the shareholders to see, yeah, the game performs well. It's an 84 out of 10. That means we can throw more money at the company, and that means the CEO can get a bigger pay. It's not for you. This is not for you. For you, it's going to follow a few days later. But I do want another thing. I want to mention another thing, which I think this is going to be very interesting. So the game launches in 2 more days, right? On the 31st. So 1, 2, 3. That means it's going to launch right in the middle of Monster Hunter Wilds. So I think that this is going to be the biggest test of them all and the biggest reveal of them all. Who is going to win, player count wise, between a beta of Monster Hunter Wilds and the full release of Dragon Age the Veilguard? Let's put that to the test. Should we make another poll, guys? Let's end the first poll. We have, let's see how you guys fared. So 36% said between 80 and 90. 36% of the folks were initially correct. That's true. They are still correct. 70, 80, 28%, under 70, 24%, 90 plus, 99%, and oh boy. All right. Let's make another poll. I'm going to do it right now. Hold up. Start a poll. Who is going to have a higher player count on, what is this? October 31st and onwards? Is it going to be A, Dragon Age, the Veilguard? Or is it going to be B? Hold up. Why is it putting a stupid sign? Okay, whatever. Monster Hunter Wilds. Whoever gets it correct, I mean, let's be honest, you're gonna bankrupt me if I do this, but I'm not gonna do it, so start poll. Let's go. Let the voting commence. I know, dude, but it's fun. It's for the heck of it. It's just for fun. Why not? Okay, fine. Let's end the poll. I'm not gonna end the poll, actually. I'm just gonna put it like this because it's fun, dude. Because you have to keep in mind, it's a beta. And some folks will jump in it, and they might play for a little bit, and they will not care for as long. It's for fun, guys. It's just a bit of trolling. Like, just relax. It's not a big deal. So, yeah. Yep. Who is going to win in a fight, Goku or an ant? The ant may still have a chance. You never know, Black Flame. The ant may be a Super Saiyan God. So yeah. But like, on a serious note, it's obviously going to be a bigger launch. Like just gonna end the poll right here. It was just for fun. Like, just chillax. Obviously, Monster Hunter Wilds, like, you can just watch Google Trends and it's obviously going to be much bigger. That's not the point I was trying to make. The point I was trying to make is that it's going to be a very few interesting days from this point on, after the 31st. That's the point that I wanted to make. And I think that maybe, just maybe, BioWare or EA might have recognized that now they have a competition that's also free this weekend. So maybe this was a last-minute decision to give review codes to only the most favorable. But, like, again, not implying that they were also favorable. Obviously, we had a few reviews that were very unfavorable. So maybe that was not the criteria. Who knows? It could have obviously gone in any way conceivable. Oh, we have Eurogamer. Okay, let's check out Eurogamer.
To see a fantasy adventure brought to life around me in Dragon Age: The Veilguard at such a scale and with such drama is astonishing.
Why do they say scale? Is the game that big in terms of like, or do they just mean scale as in game and everything, but like maps or what?
Keep expecting.
They keep saying scale, but I don't think the game is bigger, like, I don't know, or is it bigger content-wise than Inquisition was? Does it have bigger maps even though it is more linear? I can see it being bigger, like, build option-wise and skill trees, but I don't know.
The illusion to falter and for the glam to tire, but it never does. Always the ante is upped and the centerpiece grows. I gulp. I hold my breath.
Okay, so this is the review we checked previously, so we know the conclusion of it.
Of them. It is the strongest and loudest answer BioWare could have mustered for the people still doubting whether it could do it. The answer is yes, emphatically. The Veilguard is spectacular. BioWare is back.
Oh, that is a bold claim. That is a bold claim. Let's see the comments. Best Dragon Age 1, Mass Effect 1 and 2. Okay, Knights of the Old Republic. Best BioWare has ever been. That's why it's hard for me to take it serious. Like, it's hard for me to take serious anybody who says, like, in absolute terms. I hate absolute terms in video games because it's such a subjective territory, genre. Like, you obviously appreciate art differently compared to the individual next to you. So if you speak in absolute terms, I just think that kind of takes away from your validity. I don't know. I think it's talking way too absolute terms to say that, yes, this is definitely the best that this company has done in all of its existence. Especially when we talk about BioWare and Mass Effect 1, 2, and even 3 to a degree. And all the other games, the initial Dragon Age games. I haven't played Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, but I did play Mass Effect 1, 2, 3, and Andromeda. And I can say those types of games really made a lasting impression. So there's a difference. I agree, but people used absolute terms when they glazed Baldur's Gate 3. Fair, Sailor Mercury. That's a fair assessment. I think that Baldur's Gate 3 also got a bit glazed. But to be honest, it's one of those games that, to an extent, it deserves it. And some aspects of it may have been, you know, like super praise when maybe they should have not been. But as a package, it was a heck of a game. Maybe those big companies are basing it on the new BioWare that bears no resemblance to the BioWare of old. That is it. Yeah, that was the point I was trying to make. Because which of the BioWares is back? We have two BioWares, separate BioWares. We have the pre-Mass Effect Andromeda BioWare, and we have the post-Mass Effect Andromeda BioWare. So which one is it? And if I'm not mistaken, if you take a look at Veilguard Wikipedia, they have a huge turnover of top lead compared to any other project that has ever been. So let me just read you this. The development of the fourth main, began in 2015. So Mike Laidlaw, the main creative director, it was intended to be a smaller, more narrative-focused game set in the Winter Imperium, Problems with the development of BioWare's other games, Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem, led to repeated interruptions as Joplin staff was shifted to these games. This included putting Joplin on hold in late 2016, with the development resuming in March 2017 after Andromeda shipped. In October 2017, BioWare and its parent company, Electronic Arts, cancelled the project altogether, reportedly because it had no room for a live service component to provide ongoing monetization opportunities. This was when EA was heavily into live service elements in all their games. This is when we were about to get Andromeda pretty much shipped out, but Anthem was about to come out a year later. So this was that phase, and then obviously Anthem happened and the rest is history. But development of the game was restarted under this is the stage I wanted to cover, the staff turnover. So the project has been marked by a high turnover of leading staff. Several veteran Dragon Age staff, including Laidlaw, left the company in response to Joplin's cancellation in 2017. After the 2018 restart, Mark Dara remained as an executive producer. I believe that Mark Dara was also working on Anthem, while Matthew Goldman took over to the position of creative director for the project from 2017 to 2021, and then by December 2020, Dara had resigned from BioWare, replaced by somebody else, and then Goldman also left BioWare in 2021, and then was also replaced by Appler, and then Daly left. So basically all of these folks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many they are, eventually left from the project. So it didn't have an easy development cycle, and it seemed like it didn't have a necessarily like a complete direction right from the very beginning. It still seemed that neither EA nor BioWare were completely certain of what they want from the game. They were fiddling with live service elements. They were going and leaning heavily into that in that period. It failed completely, so they then had to regroup, and then obviously, I think there's probably going to be another Jason Schreier expose coming up. That would be extremely funny. Imagine if BioWare gets another expose after Andromeda and Anthem. Imagine getting the third one. And of course, 2023, BioWare laid 50 people off working on Veilguard and the next Mass Effect game. Obviously, if Veilguard has these problems, I do wonder if the next Mass Effect game is going to fall in a similar pickle. So yes. 7 of them sued BioWare for additional compensation, including complaining that BioWare's NDAs prevented them from adding their work on Veilguard to their portfolio. So yeah, I'm not sure. These all have their, obviously, like Eurogamer was Eurogamer gave this game a very positive review, and they are the ones who reported on this. I see no reason for them to be lying about this. I mean, in a negative way, that is. There's another one from I'm not sure who VentureBeat is, and Games Radar, which is also very friendly. I'm like, what's Games Radar stance on Veilguard review? They obviously must have gotten one. Okay, see? Why do they all seem so similar? A true return to RPG form of BioWare. Like, why do they keep saying that it's a true return of BioWare? Why do they all have the same freaking script? Dragon Age: The Veilguard is an unapproachable, expansive action-oriented RPG and feels like a true end to whatever the franchise was before. Dude, didn't Eurogamer say the exact same thing? Didn't we have Eurogamer literally saying the same thing? Let me just see. Obviously, the best BioWare has ever been, but I could have sworn that they've said the same thing. It's like a rehearsal, possibly, but I don't think maybe they just applied the same rose-tinted glasses and maybe reached to that conclusion on their own. Like, you can reach the same conclusion if you analyze a thing, but usually that's in mathematics, not in something as abstract as art. Okay, it's the strongest and loudest answer BioWare could have mustered for the people still doubting whether it could do it. The answer is yes. Let me just read again. Dragon Age the Veilguard is unapproachable, expansive, action-oriented RPG and feels like true end to whatever the franchise was before. Hold up. Maybe it wasn't this, but I could have sworn. Dude. It is as filling as any Dragon Age game before it, and every bit an RPG, and yet it's also more. Unapproachable, expansive, action-oriented RPG, and feels like a true end to whatever the franchise was before. I don't know. I don't know. Same chat GPT input. You're way too mean, dude. Oh, dude. You know what's fun? Like, back in the days, we used to laugh at Anthem because the reviews were more fun than the game itself. I don't freaking want to say, dude. I'm gonna get blacklisted by every game company from now on. What will be the gameplay time? I think it's 50 hours. I think it's solid in gameplay. I think there's quite a lot to it. Skill Up was mentioning he played for 50 hours. Let me see. IGN. What companies does IGN own? Oh, now I see. Eurogamer, Games Industry, Rock Paper Shotgun, VG27. Shares in outside Xbox. Okay, blah blah blah. So this is Eurogamer and this is Games Radar. Who owns Games Radar? Okay. Who owns Future? Okay, so this is a British publishing company. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, okay. I want to see... Hold up. Eurogamer. We have the Eurogamer. I want to see the Rock Paper Shotgun. No, not that one. Ah, screw it. Let's see. Rock Paper Shotgun Veilguard review. Interesting. Okay. So this seems a bit more, I mean, it's still obviously a positive one, but that was very odd. These two right here were a bit odd. IGN owns Eurogamer? Yes, I am just as shocked as you are. Yeah, 50 hours for a linear game doesn't sound bad, to be honest. Let me just completely check that out, because it's for 100, maybe 100% completion. So Veilguard game length. Oh, this doesn't help. Between 40 and 100 hours. That doesn't narrow it. Do you have an idea how little this narrows it down? But if it's at least 40 hours, that is actually really good. Veilguard story length. I hope it's no longer than 20 hours. Okay, it doesn't say. All right. Yeah. Let's check some of the other review scores. Let's see Game Rant. They gave it an 100 out of 100. I want to see the 100 reviews, to be honest. I want to see what they say. I want to see what big companies like Game Rant have to say. Hold up a sec. I want to move my stupid mug from this part of the screen to this part. There you go. I'm gonna transition. Okay. There you go. So I can't be normal about Dragon Age, and my time with Dragon Age the Veilguard is just further proof of that. When given 2 weeks to review the game, the reasonable thing to do would have been to not change my gaming habits too much and play it like I would have any other title. It's exactly what I would do for anything else, but it's not only freaking hell. But it is not my other title, and I am not reasonable. Okay, whatever. I want to see what he says. So my first playthrough was a Qunari mage who was a Grey Warden. The character I've had in my head since Dragon Age the Veilguard properly revealed itself. I made all the choices I would naturally as if it were launch day, beating the game at 55 hours. So the main story takes 50 hours, basically. This is the second reviewer who confirms that, which is good to note. That means we have a chunky amount of content. My second playthrough, okay, was an Elven Rogue Veil Jumper, and as I would have naturally, I made all the opposite decisions with this character. I skipped any cutscenes I had already watched the bigger decisions, blah blah blah, just going over the info. So while BioWare has shown off plenty of Dragon Age the Veilguard character creator, it bears repeating that it is fantastic. It's pretty much the exact opposite of Inquisition. It was normal to make an Inquisitor and instantly regret their appearance once the first cutscene played. For every single one of my rooks, I was happier with how they turned out than I ever expected. So I guess this is in part because there are no weird lighting and shadow on the faces, because now obviously the graphics have evolved a little bit, but the Qunari may still look a little bit obviously like very goofy with the big foreheads. But the elf characters, I think they look really good, you know, at least in the confinements of this art style. You can create some visually appealing characters, at least with the faces, from some of the previews I'm seeing right here. So goes over praising, obviously, the character creator. They praise the character creator. Okay, so Dragon Age the Veilguard is truly a game of choice and consequence. The heart and soul of every Dragon Age game comes down to its story, lore, and companions, and these remain the top billing of the Veilguard. Fans already know that Veilguard's story revolves around the titular group attempting to stop the two blighted elven gods, I'm not going to pronounce this, from destroying the world. Without going into spoilers, the delivery is very much like a sleight of hands, a card trick. The way the story plays with player perception, leading them to think about one thing while something else entirely develops, is a trick in storytelling befitting of the Dreadwolf. This doesn't only apply to the main story, but its companion quests and faction quests as well. So this is the second review that I'm seeing mentioning that story decisions or some kind of higher quality applies to both the main story and the side content. I think that's a bit encouraging, to be honest, but again, it's Game Rant. Every companion has their own arc in Dragon Age the Veilguard, with their personal narrative developing through conversations, outings, and quests. So you have to take them with you, and you're going to increase that reputation. So, wait, please, if you have not done this, do a comparison of Qunari in the past Dragon Age games to this one. It looks mental. We've already seen the differences. It's like night and day, dude. Like, how did Dragon Age Origins, I don't know. Let's see. Qunari Evolution. I think there was a much better, because initially it was kind of, you know, so and so. Then this was Inquisition. So this is what we had. This was still good. Iron Bull. Still looking good. Iron Bull not having big forehead. And then we have this. So yeah. Okay, it brings me to the same thread. So yeah. It's basically the guy she tells you not to worry about versus you. Oops. My bad. So basically, I'm not sure if you've seen this. Yeah, it was the wrong screen. So, you... hold up. I just need to change my freaking face. So this is you versus the guy she tells you not to worry about. This is it right here. This is the difference. This is what we could have had, and this is what we get. It looks like he has a bot on his forehead. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I don't even care at this point, dude. Butt face? Or Chad the demon? Look at that receding hairline, dude. Like, he needs a trip to Turkey. Oh, yeah, it's a player-made character, fine. Kinari. Character creation. Can we see some of the old ones? Even in Inquisition, they looked good. I think the reason why it looked good, and I can see why, is because the horns... The horns started in the forehead, so you didn't have this TV screen, this projector screen. And in here, it kind of blends over at the top, and it makes like this huge forehead. So you can make one like the right side. Okay, fine, that's completely true. But there are Kinari side characters in Veilguard, right? Like, obviously, there are Kinari characters. We have Tash, or whatever the name is. Obviously, this is not a... I forgot the name, obviously. Obviously, there's a difference. This is not player created either. So we can still apply the same comparison. But yeah, that's not like the point I was trying to make. I was trying to go over this. The former sees players join the companions. So this basically talks about companions and how their quests are meaningful, and there are decisions here to be made, and that going through conversations, outings, and quests with them is going to increase your reputation with them, plus develops narratively your connection with them. Outings are more involved, but typically remain focused on one key element of the companion's development, and the quests are the larger missions. So outing sounds like some kind of small objective that we have to complete. Probably. Completing all of this is how companions earn the hero of the Veilguard status, and each R ends with a major choice. Each one ends... Oh, each arc. That's very strange to see. Ends with a major choice related to the character. Obviously, this was implied from the Q&A sessions. They did mention this. It doesn't go into too much detail, but these quests are not self-contained. A choice made in the main quest can come into play in the companion quest and vice versa. Unique encounters can exist entirely based off these decisions. For example, based on who my rogue romanced and a conversation with a completely different party member, I saw unique dialogues that I didn't see in my first playthrough. Based on other choices, both in the companion missions and the main story, entire choices can be taken from the player because they've already set into motion a completely different series of events. Choices in Dragon Age the Veilguard are arguably not as far-reaching as past games. Okay, so they pray... this is why I hate these build-ups. They keep praising that the choices are so significant and that the main story choices affect the side character like results and choices, but then they say they aren't as far-reaching as the previous games. But like the previous games... No, whatever. Are arguably not as far-reaching as past games, but they are far more systemic and far more intimate as a result. A good comparison in terms of scale is that the Inquisition was a major political organization and military power, and the choices reflected that. The Veilguard is more like a group of emergency responders, and the choices in the game reflect that. Okay. At least I'm glad there are choices. Skill up review worse than Anthem. Am I going to play the game? I am going to cover the game specifically because it's a big release, but I'm not sure how I'm going to balance it out with Monster Hunter Wilds. I'm not sure I'm going to balance this because tomorrow we have Monster Hunter Wilds and I'm planning to jump straight into the beta and play it. Initially, I was planning to make a full guide series of Veilguard, and I still likely will. But I need to get my hands on the game first. I still think there's a potential to it in terms of at least the combat, but I'm not sure because none of these reviews talk about the end game, and all I know is from some of the previews we had and the QA sessions. So I'm not completely certain if going overboard with builds is even going to be needed here. But it seems like the game is chunky. It has 50 hours to finish the main story. It feels like you have a lot of choices to make. That's at least what all of these reviews are implying, even the negative ones. It's just that it feels very bad. It feels like not a great game. That is the problem with Veilguard. So I'm going to have to play it first, see what's up about it, see if it's worth developing any builds around it, because I've been theory crafting on the builds for a while. I have been even talking about these in... I've been talking about this in the Rogue. Not this one. As you can see, I like rogues, but I've been talking about this in my rogue preview. We made some analysis of some of the builds, and I reached the conclusion that you can create some really, really crazy builds, especially with the duelist and the adrenaline build. You can possibly reach some crazy results over there. So that's kind of like what I'm going with. I will likely follow up with guides on the game. And after I finish the game 100%, and depending if I have time or not, I'm going to follow up with a review of my own. That's my initial plan. We'll see how Wilds affects all of that. But yeah, Dragon Age Veilguard does a great job at communicating when a companion has something to say, with it being marked on the map of Lighthouse and their individual rooms being lit with the lights. Yeah, we talked about this, that the game gives you there's very few ways to miss this. If you just go to the Lighthouse, you will see that you have new ways to talk to those companions and increase your standing with them, obviously. I visited the Lighthouse every single mission, and almost always at least one companion had a scene, at least until players hit the point that they began to wrap up everything before Act 3. I think Act 3 may be towards the end. Also had their own against... So yeah, basically quite a positive review. I'm not gonna read through all of it. They only listed the pros over here, so they gave it a 10 out of 10. So engaging storytelling and lore. Lovable companions, meaningful systemic choices, great engaging combat. That's the final review score for Games Rant. They obviously enjoyed it. 100 hours in. That's how much they spent on it. YouTubers try their hardest to destroy this game before launch. I'm not even sure if YouTubers... I think that the early reviews were quite fair and even positive, I would say. I don't think established YouTubers try destroying it. I don't think there was any dishonesty in the initial... At least from the reviews I watched. Like, pretty much every reviewer you would expect to get early access to the game got it in those 7 hours. So I think initially it was pretty fair for the first 7 hours and quite positive, to be honest. I think a lot of folks that are super critical of games in general gave it a very high mark, which was surprising. I mean even Skill Up initially... This is what's very interesting, because Skill Up, before putting out the preview, it was quite positive. At least that was my take from it. It was quite positive. So it's mostly that Twitter was the most negative, in my opinion. It was Twitter that was super... And obviously there are some drama videos up on this. Skill Up does not... Yeah, I know it doesn't. He doesn't recommend it. I'm not talking about the review. Obviously, this changed in the review after playing for 50. And yeah, that was Austin. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, because I keep messing their names up. So Austin was the one who played it and thought it was pretty decent. But yeah, different opinions. Like I said, same channel, two different opinions. Obviously, folks will see this differently. Probably knew he wouldn't get any key if he trashed it before. I don't think Skill Up worries about that. I really don't think a channel like this worries about that. 6-hour hands-on preview was curated. Magic, right? I can tell you this about game previews. All of the previews are curated and highly and meticulously crafted so that you experience exactly what the developers want you to see. I can guarantee you that every single game is like this. There's no game you go to, play 7 hours or even 2 hours for a month in advance, and they just like give you like, okay, take the game and just play it. That's not how it works. For sure, if they said if it... What do you mean, Magic Rights? They said it was all Act 2. Oh, you mean that the preview was just Act 1? That's also quite typical. They will usually not give you an option to play like super late into any game. They will almost never give you a super late game build or part of a game in any of these previews. Because usually that also means... Like, obviously, Act 1 in every video game is the most polished. Almost every game, the first act is always much more polished than the last act. Like, every game I've been checking out, it was always the same. You start and it's very polished and generally runs much better, and once you progress in the game, it's always giving you these problems. Oh no, the 6-hour previews was cuts throughout the entire game, the best parts, and they showcased it as only Act 1. I'm gonna have to check with Zane on that. I'm not sure they presented that only as Act 1. I'm pretty sure that there were no references of acts anyway. And yeah, BG3 is a good example of that. Act 3 basically, at least on launch when I played it, we obviously on the channel played it like crazy. Like Baldur's Gate, we had so many videos and so much content on it. And by the time I reached Act 3, the performance was so bad. It was way worse than Act 1, but Act 1 was very polished. Everybody played Act 1 because that was also the one available in early access. Everybody, like, even the first act of... Here's the thing about Baldur's Gate 3. You can take a look at just the first act, and it's almost as big as a game. If you really go and dive deep to find all the secrets, all the possible story implications, and all the possible things in it, you're pretty much looking at least like 20 hours. And there were folks who spent 100 hours in the first act. Because there are so many things you can jump into and it affects different outcomes. Like, there were things I was discovering months after the game came out. And it was like, that's in Act 1? So that's why I think that Baldur's Gate, like, it holds such a high mark. It's very hard. That's why I don't even like making comparisons of any game with Baldur's Gate 3. Like, that's on a completely different class. It's on a level of its own. And it stood in early access for a solid, 1-2 years? I'm not even sure when it left early access. I know that I came in quite late in the early access. And basically jumped like the month before launch. My biggest gripe is that though the game is called Dragon Age, they don't tell you how old the dragons actually are. Well, they're supposed to be very old. They're supposed to be very old, Vega. I don't like quite a bit about BG3, but the way it dynamically reacts to your decisions is amazing. Absolutely. Like, that's a level of craft you're not going to see in too many games. Or any game, for that matter. Have we had any other game with such massive implications, like decision implications, and how much they can affect the game? Big and small. Like, have we had any other game getting close to it? Besides maybe some of the... well, Dragon Age obviously is the comparison here, but I feel that it completely exceeds any Dragon Age game. Any reviews mention if there are great swords in the game? Still don't think we have a difficult answer to that question. I don't believe we have great swords in the game. I think it's two-handed hammers, two-handed axes, or let me see. Warrior weapons, Veilguard. Because you have sword and shield, and you have axes. But it doesn't completely explain. And I don't think anybody answers. Maybe here. I don't believe we have great swords. I have not seen any previews, and we also, I believe, played with a warrior, so no. Yeah. All right, let's see. Any other reviews? What do we have here? So Dragon Age Veilguard reviews. What else do we have? I think we pretty much checked all the big ones. Like 65 hours, that's pretty reasonable game size. GameSpot has one.
Age the Veilguard is a really big game, big enough that we are in fact still playing it as of the time of the recording, when the embargo is now up and we can talk about it. So I have Jordan Ramey with me here, who is reviewing Veilguard for GameSpot, to give his in-progress thoughts on the game. We're going to be keeping it a little more casual, with our full review coming within the next day or so. And do not worry, we'll be keeping this conversation and footage as spoiler-free as possible, because if there's one thing that me and Jordan both feel very strongly about is I do not want to spoil anything from this game, because there is cool stuff that we will absolutely not be talking about.
Yes, we can mention that there's cool stuff, but we should not say what that cool stuff is.
No, absolutely not. So, Jordan, it's a new Dragon Age game. It's a new BioWare game. BioWare's reputation over the years has kind of, been up and down. People are kind of looking to this game, putting all their hopes and dreams on it. So I think it's got a lot riding on it. Do you like the game?
What a question. What a question. As of recording this video, I am about 25 hours into.
Why Skill Up giving it such SHIT? He just didn't like it, plain and simple. He called it worse than Anthem and didn't see basically any evolution in terms of like the BioWare formula. He called some of the aspects of the game dated and just didn't enjoy it. After 20 hours, he mentioned that he just didn't enjoy the game.
The game, so probably not anywhere actually close to finishing it, but a chunk. I've done a chunk, and so far there are aspects of it that I do really enjoy. I'm a big fan of the characters. I'm a big fan of the lore dumps and the ability to see aspects of the setting that we have not been able to really see before. As a big Dragon Age nut, I am really in here for the story. At the same time, there are aspects of the combat that I'm not a huge fan of. There are aspects of the art direction that I'm not a huge fan of. And there are just things in regards to the main story that I'm like, Dragon Age has never been like, their main stories have never been this huge, incredible epic that I've enjoyed. I'm usually a bigger fan of the smaller stories. And so this one kind of remains steady in that opinion of like, I'm not a huge fan of the overarching plot. So it's kind of this game that I'm feeling not mid feels I think a little bit too harsh, but this was not the like out of the ballpark hit that I was really hoping to get from BioWare. But it's a good game. Like, I'm not saying like this game is trash, it deserves the worst possible review score ever. Like, I am enjoying myself, but I am not enjoying myself as much as I hoped that I would going in.
I also want to
Interesting.
address BioWare. Their last couple of games have been a little rocky. Anthem, Mass Effect Andromeda. How is the game?
That's very interesting to hear that even GameSpot considers it somewhat... Well, he said the word mid, but I don't think that's what he meant. I think mostly that it was an okay game, but it didn't like obviously click with him. Have you seen Factual video regarding review codes? It looks like they only gave review codes to people not critical with the game. Looks bad. I mean, at this point, it's obviously not... I mean, I have watched some part of it, so I can't really say anything. I'm not really exactly sure, but at least by that metric that they only gave it to folks who would not be critical about the game, I don't think that's true. They gave it to Skill Up, and Skill Up really, really did not like it and doesn't recommend it. They gave it to Mr. Matty Plays, who also finds it a big disappointment. They also gave it, obviously they gave it to GameSpot, they would have always given it. They also say it's kind of mid. So, you know, but Skill Up also, yeah, like somebody says in the chat, mentions that, yeah, Skill Up also recommends checking out other reviews and making your own decision, which I agree with. I hear that some other channels give it like big praises, game of the year, and all of that, which is obviously everyone's opinion. Like, what culture says it's BioWare is back. Oh, this is the video I think you're referencing, by the way. So, like you can see, I tried watching a bit of it, but I didn't get a chance. I bet you dollars to donut that this will be the quality of BioWare going forward. The game is going to do okay sales-wise, and they're going to pump out mid-games forever. I don't know, dude. It's still BioWare, and it's supposed to be like EA's, I don't know, jewel. Can we even call it that after a decade? And, like, what was the last game you could say you really liked from BioWare? I'm not sure. I think there's still a chance that BioWare will do their best to just make the most out of this experience and look forward and maybe improve with something. I still hold hopes for Mass Effect 4, or whatever it's going to be called. I still hold hopes that at least that is not going to get messed up. But right now, my confidence level in the studio is, you know, is quite low. And generally, I like to hold a very positive outlook on gaming as a general rule of mine. I typically want to look very positively at everything, because obviously it's in the company's best interest to put out good games. Otherwise, they would not be in business. Eventually, that's going to have to happen. And EA has done so with Jedi Survivor. And basically Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order. But Jedi Survivor was like, narratively speaking, I absolutely love this game. I really want to see a not movie, but like a not even maybe series. But I would love to see a series out of this, even though it has a 6 out of 10 on Steam, but it's mostly positive. But most of the mixed reviews I think are related to just the graphics. Okay, EA account and bad performance. But narratively, I absolutely loved Cal Kestis, and I think that EA putting out a single-player game after so many years of that live service BS shows that companies like these can change. Also, Metaphysical Mike, thank you so much for the $5 donation. Absolutely appreciate you. And you're a really cool dude for that. So I still think there's maybe savings, but I don't know, dude. It feels like Dragon Age Veilguard, the Veilguard, almost said the F word, was hit by the same problems as the previous BioWare games. High lead turnover, development issues, pretty much all of that. Like we talked about the Wikipedia one, Veilguard's Wikipedia. This is the third game in the franchise. Well, not really the franchise. Like the third game they release with a very high staff turnover and development problems. And this all began basically around Mass Effect Andromeda. So after Mass Effect Andromeda, everything went to like complete shit. Andromeda failed to meet their expectation, even though I liked Andromeda. I liked the combat, but I agree that the story and some of the elements of it were not up to par. But ever since Andromeda, they just went deeper and deeper. I thought it would culminate with Anthem, but it seems that these problems just snowballed. And as you can see, even after Anthem and even during the project, they called it Joplin. This was cancelled a couple of times. And then 5 lead designers and whatever other top brass came at the company and basically left right after. Andromeda had the best combat in the series. I liked Andromeda combat. It was because of the combo system, which they also added in Veilguard, but in Veilguard it seems to be a bit different. And the fast-paced movement, basically, like the jetpack thing, jumping up, using combos, it was very fun. But so was Mass Effect 3, in my opinion. It was really good. The Dragon Age Veilguard was in development hell for 10 years, but so was Andromeda and so was Anthem. They had development hell for so many years. No, Veilguard is correct. Andromeda was a decent game on its own, but you just felt disappointed completed the trilogy. Also too many bugs at launch, and of course the character faces. You know what's funny and sad at the same time? That BioWare is still having the same problems. I'm not sure if it's completely because of the game engine, but I feel it may be part of it. They still use that same game engine, the Frostbite. Is it Frostbite? I'm pretty sure it's Frostbite as well. They did not ditch it after the Andromeda debacle. Of course, it's been improved since then. So facial animations look better. I'm not sure if we're going to have a tired face 2.0, but, you know. Mass Effect 3 multiplayer was so good. I didn't get, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to. I bought Mass Effect 3 like years after it came out, just because it's. There were different times here where I live, so obviously we had a different perspective of our ability to buy games at that stage. So I didn't basically have I think a PlayStation or a PC at the time to play Mass Effect 3, but years after I bought it and played the heck out of it the year before Andromeda came out. So I don't recall playing much of Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, but I do recall playing the Andromeda multiplayer and had quite a bit of fun. Watch Morticimal Gaming's review. He said that this is his favorite Dragon Age and game of the year. I mean, if that's... I mean, whatever conclusion all of these reviews come to, I'm not attacking any of them. Obviously, all of them are entitled to their own conclusion. I'm not gonna like go ahead and say, well, this game doesn't deserve Game of the Year, or this game is this or that. I'm not going to attack somebody's opinion on that. I'm going to make my own when I get it. I'm just going to say, okay, this is the game. This is what I think of it. This is what's going to happen going forward. I still want to play it. There are two things that kind of put my will to play back online, back in check. And that is that the game seems quite chunky with the 50, 100 hours that people played. And, yeah, 100 hours. This is what kind of gets me interested. And the build possibility. Andromeda was equally as negatively blasted on day one. I remember the backlash on Andromeda. Look, like the memes were... I still remember the Wildcat video. Like they dropped a few days after launch, or maybe a week after. I can remember. So obviously, I do want to see it with my own eyes and give it a try. And I will be streaming, by the way, at least the intro hours. I'm going to be streaming the first day. Probably go for like a marathon. And that's what I'm going to try to do. Okay, incoming update week 2 of release, 90 gigs. Which game? Do you mean for Andromeda? I mean for Veilguard, really? Has that been confirmed, or is it just like your expectation? Some people did not like the loot boxes for multiplayer for Mass Effect 3 and Andromeda, but I didn't mind it. Oh, okay. I see. That was such a long time ago, it feels like eternity. Like, really. Oh, all fixes for update 2. I'm not sure. Have bugs been mentioned in any of the reviews? Has anybody talked about any bugs? Let me see. Metacritic, Veilguard. Let's go and filter by the lowest of the lowest. It's now currently sitting at 84, which is by all things, I mean, all things considered, it's not bad. CD Action gave it the lowest score on the PlayStation 5. Let's see. Dragon Age Veilguard leaves us with the impression that we bought the wrong title. Instead of a true RPG, we get a mediocre action-adventure game, a scenario stretched to the limits, a poorly constructed world, and monotonous gameplay bored me to tears. Talk about not mincing your words. CD Action, I want to see this. Oh, it's in... I'm not sure what language it is. Let me just translate this whole thing. All right. Let's read this. This is a 6 out of 10, by the way. So let's read it together. Today, many folks consider gaming journalists to be policemen who are supposed to tear apart games in a particular spectacular way and slap the big publisher on the wrists. These expectations grow the more the creators get under the skin of their fans, whether it's by making them wait a decade for the next installment of the series, by fundamental changes to the formula, or by so-called inclusivity, I guess, also known as, okay, woke. In this context, EA has already incredibly disliked... Okay, this is very hard to read because it's not properly translated, but EA has already incredibly disliked many fans of the series before the release of the Dragon Age game. Basically talking about the controversy and the initial, like, not the best reception, like poor reception of Veilguard, which seemed dead for years. The best evidence of how long it has been since the release of Inquisition is the fact that it took BioWare a total of 5 years to deliver 2 sequels to Origin. And you know what? I feel terribly sorry for these most loyal fans, because they are the ones who will potentially be the most disappointed by what they ultimately get after a decade of praying for one more game. This is very difficult to read. I want to see the conclusion, basically. I want to see actually bugs, which doesn't seem to... It doesn't seem to feature, but this is like very hard to read. Like, it just destroys my eyes. No wow effect. I want to read this, okay. So Veilguard looks very good, although, as I mentioned, not necessarily in the background. Sometimes the game looks excessively sugary, which does not really fit a dark story about a plague destroying the world. Very, very good assessment over here. There's also nothing particularly memorable here, just a safe fantasy classic summarized in order, and that's it. It is pleasing that the PS5 version works without any major problems, although typically for Frostbite-based productions, it catches a slight lag when clicking through the menus. After many encounters with EA games, however, one can say that this is probably just the charm of their engine, because this has been happening with subsequent FIFAs for years. Can anybody chime in with FIFAs? I know that FIFA always runs on Frostbite engine. Has that also been, how do you say it, Fortnite-ified? Is that also looking similarly? But yeah, there's... Apparently, it runs pretty smoothly on the PS5, even for a 6 out of 10 review, so that's encouraging. The new Dragon Age shows some potential, but the game is killed by the fact that it takes a long time to complete it in a relation to the chosen gameplay formula. Leaving the console after a few hours, I would even consider 8. Reaching the end credits is 30 to 40 hours of fun. I guess they meant gameplay. And with quite cliched side quests and collecting crates, you can spend just as much in front of the screen. Instead of enjoying it, however, most of the time I was just exchanging messages with Ranafe, who was also playing like, oh, how much longer is this going to take? Or I guess that's the other reviewer from the site. So they were basically waiting for the game to finish. Because the problem is that when we play Dragon Age, we usually feel like we're dealing with an action game that lacks spark and is stretched to its limits. Although I complain a lot in the text, in many aspects it's a really well-made game. A work of art without any flair, and also without the atmosphere of a familiar universe that draws you in front of the screen. And you know what? If it weren't for the fact that I had to write this text, I probably would have simply uninstalled the title after 10 hours and started catching up on another, much more interesting things released over the last 12 months. Ouch. That is a big ouch over there. So the game leaves us with the impression that we made a mistake in the store. The successor of the RPG with active pause turns out to be an averagely captivating mix of action-adventure titles. The scenario stretched to the limit of possibilities, a poorly constructed world, and monotonous gameplay make us leave the screen very bored. In terms of the pros, quite nice combat mechanics, it's a great way to relax for a few hours, good companion quests, if you get to them. And in terms of cons, uninteresting world structure, lack of consistency in the scenario and on the maps, very shallow RPG elements, slightly messed up area abilities, pretextual development of companions. It has little to do with the Dragon Age series. Final score, 6 out of 10. Now, I would say it's a harsh review, but not completely unfair. They did mention that the game looks good, which surprised me. That is a surprise to me. I'm just gonna say it outright. It's a surprise in the sense that there are very few folks who looked at the game conceptually and graphics-wise, and especially so art style-wise, and said, this game looks good. So for such a harsh review to say that they liked the game, a work of art without any flair is probably a very good description. Work of art without any flair. They basically mentioned that it doesn't even look like a Dragon Age game. It doesn't even feel like one. Kind of like a thin coat of paint. So my question is, are we able to acknowledge positive toxicity? Because that seems to be happening with some of these reviews. Very hard to say what's toxic and what's not. Like, even the smallest criticism nowadays, I feel like it's labeled as toxic. And I don't really agree with that. But at the same time, I can see a lot of discourse around video game releases being centered around negativity just because it generates more clicks. So it goes both ways. It goes both ways. You can both have a work of art being criticized because it lacks, like, pretty much from any point of view you can criticize it. This is a very well constructed sentence, even though I think we lose some of the stuff because of the translation. But I think that this comparison, a work of art without any flair, is not toxic and quite fair. It recognizes that the game has its moments. There are some positive things about it, but because it's just not there where it's supposed to be, it misses the mark. And it doesn't feel like a successor to a beloved series. I think this whole construct right here, this whole narrative, comes from somebody who's genuinely a fan of the series. Because that's what a fan usually describes, what they really love and would love to see more of. Like, if somebody's very enthusiastic about a work of art and they get let down because of the direction the creator goes into, I can see them putting something like this out. Basically. Digital Trends, I'm not sure who these are. Eurogamer Germany gives it a big boost. Push Square, 8 out of 10. Eurogamer, this is so strange. Eurogamer Poland. This is the same situation as IGN and IGN China with Wukong. One giving it a 10 out of 10 and the other one giving it like a 5, or what was the final score of Black Myth Wukong? 7 out of 10 from IGN? I forgot. I think it's going to be an average game at best. Not great, not terrible. Not horrible. And very divisive. A very divisive game. I think a lot of the narrative nowadays is, if this game is this game a 10 out of 10 or is it trash? There's no in between. You can't have any in betweens nowadays, just because the gaming space has been ruined to such an extent that you can't even have a proper discussion about something as subjective as a piece of art without somebody becoming inflammatory and throw accusations and just attack the character of the other speaker. Like, imagine you're debating on a painting at a museum, and instead of saying valid criticism like, okay, this is not for me, I think these lines could have been drawn better, maybe the artist could have expressed ideas a little bit better, or maybe you praise it and say, I really like the way the artist has created this piece of art. Instead of having that kind of discourse with somebody sitting next to you, you just punch each other in the face and call each other names or attack the character of the other person. Oh, you like this because you're this and that. Yeah, basically character assassination. Ad hominem attacks. That's what they call them. You don't attack the idea, you attack the person, the quality of the person who puts out that idea. So I think a lot of the discourse nowadays is that you take a piece of art and then people in the chat or in the comments or on Twitter or even in these articles, they don't even resort to just analyzing that piece of art, they attack each other. Like even the media companies do it, you oftentimes see articles about, oh, grifters are review bombing this game and this other art, and it goes other ways. This media company is a paid shill. Have we heard anything negative about the game that isn't a vague statement or complaining about the art style? I mean, there have been some pretty extensive analysis, and especially now with the reviews, I think there have been some quite extensive exposés that you can obviously check out. Like I said at the start of the stream, and obviously a lot of folks expected this. It was obviously extremely expected. The game ended up being divisive. So everybody assesses these parts of a video game differently. For example, if you check my channel, obviously we do a lot of guides, a lot of tips, and a lot of builds. So I usually analyze the game from that perspective. I focus a lot more on that, which means that I don't focus as much, for example, on the narrative. I usually find most game narratives boring, and I try to skip them unless they're really engaging or the character is super cool. One of the cases with that was Jedi Survivor. I just think Cal Kestis is an amazing character, even though it's a little bit cliche, but it's a very interesting character to me. And a lot of folks, I mean, I made a lot of short moments on some of the cool story moments when the character really develops nicely. But the thing I wanted to say is that everybody just reviews and appreciates a piece of art from a different perspective. My perspective is, how fun is it to play? What can I do with the tools that the game gives to me? In what ways can I break the game in a way that is fun? So that's how I analyze my games, and I get a lot of flack for that because typically I end up reviewing the games that I tend to play anyway, so usually there are some praises in them, but most folks don't stick to the end of the video to see the negative parts as well, so yeah, that's basically it. That's basically what happens. That's why I kind of stopped doing reviews, because they are, even if your game comes out and it's genuinely really good, somebody eventually will talk smack about it, and it's wild in the comments. It's just all out war in the comments. I still have to play Jedi Survivor. That map scares me as a completionist. Yeah, it's not the best map navigation, and definitely I think that the way they developed the HUD map and the mini map is not the best. It could have definitely been streamlined a little bit and made a little bit better, but it's worth it. I think it's fun, and there is no shame or worry in putting it down once you really got all the excitement and enjoyment out of it. Like, I did not fully finish 100% Jedi Survivor. I rarely do that with games that I tend to cover, specifically because I don't want to push it to the limit where I get bored of that game and then give it a different opinion, unless the game is on the shorter side. If, for example, you can do 1,000 hours, I don't know, or over 100 hours in a video game to complete everything, typically it becomes a little bit too much, and by that point it skews your opinion. It's playing a game completely can skew your perspective the same way as playing the game too little. Because if you spend 100 hours with a game or with anything, you're going to then become much more familiarized with what it has. And then you're going to look more critically at what it does. And then you're going to notice a lot more things going wrong with it. And so on, and it kind of piles up, and it goes into the other end. I think that there's a sweet spot where you finish the game, the main story, do a bit of the end game, and I think that is the best time to review the game, after finishing the main story and jumping or seeing a little bit of the end game. That's my opinion. Obviously, everybody reviews it differently. Some reviewers do it after 10 hours, others do it after no-lifing it for 2 weeks. And that's my experience, basically. Every game that I played for 100 hours plus, eventually I marked it lower than I would have initially. Usually it's like this. For me, personally. This is how it is for me when I start a game. So if it's a good game, you're going to get a huge peak of excitement, usually within the 10 hours. Then you kind of become familiar with some things. It kind of tapers off a little bit. Then maybe something happens. If the game company is really good and you go to the next stage, maybe narratively the game evolves in a way, or maybe you get a power that looks really cool and it has been teased, then you might see another spike in enjoyment. And then, you know, at least for me personally, and narratively, I would say that a lot of games kind of taper off from the middle of the game. But there were some games when, for example, I would finish the main story and there was something extraordinary happening there. Like, boom, super endgame activity that keeps you engaged for a lot of hours. One example of that was God of War Ragnarok. God of War Ragnarok did something really amazing. Besides massively improving over the first one from 2018. Besides keeping a very engaging storyline that genuinely seemed interesting, minus, like, see this part right here? This part was Angry Boda. This part was when I almost wanted to quit the game. This was Angry Boda, and my writing is garbage, but that scene when you would play with a kid, that was the low point, I believe. And then we went back to Kratos, went back to the end game, boom, finished the main story, boom, that whole area opens up, and now you have a ton of content, you have dragons to fight, you have big enemies, you have even battle loot, and the build potential was insane. Build potential was amazing at this stage. We had maybe even not, I'm not sure if 10, but a solid 6 builds, very unique and distinct, existed at this stage once we got there. There were a couple of them that were strong in on the way, right? From the beginning, you would like around this part, you could start building towards something. But then in the end game, you could go to something really, really big. And of course, once you finish it, it kind of goes like this, and then eventually it drops because you lost interest in the game. So yeah, that's how I see. That's how I see most of the games. But typically, I cover the games that fall within this category anyway. So my channel is focused on AAA games, typically open world RPGs. So most of them will fall within this category. That's why most of the games I ever played got an 8 out of 10 or an 8.5 out of 10. That's why most of the games got there. I don't think we ever marked a game over 9 out of 10. Even Elden Ring, I don't think. But, oh, okay, for Elden Ring, we didn't put a review. We didn't put a review because there was no point putting out a review. It was the game speaks for itself. Plus, I was too busy with just the content. But most other games, it was like in this 80 out of 100. 80 out of 100 score that we gave. I think maybe some of them I gave 75 out of 100. But on average, 80 to 85 was the one, because not all games that we covered were great. Just putting it out there. Like, not all of them were Ragnarok. Not all of them were Elden Ring. Not all of them were... Even Jedi Survivor. Like, Jedi Survivor was good. I loved Jedi Survivor, but mostly because of the story and how Cal Kestis evolved. So yeah. Oh, I played God of War Ragnarok yesterday for my birthday. It was very fun going back to, and I actually put the armor from the Valhalla DLC that allowed me to get something like 950 strength. That is insane. That is good. That is really good. Yeah. I know that after we stopped covering Valhalla, God of War Ragnarok, a lot of folks obviously picked up on theory crafting and checking out all the possible combinations. And there were some crazy builds that came out after I stopped covering it. I don't enjoy the new God of War games. I don't like the story of the new God of War. I mean, fair. If you don't enjoy it, no reason to play it. Obviously. I found it quite... I didn't find it bad. I think it was a good story. I like the dynamic of Kratos and Boy. I just like the overall aspect of, I don't know, seeing him in a father sort of like father-son relationship, and kind of like all the trials and tribulations, and obviously fighting with the freaking gods is like, dude, it's fun. It's like watching Goku fighting all of these big bad like freaking villains in Dragon Ball Z. I get that this is where God of War kind of reached. This is what everybody wants from Kratos now. Just put Kratos in a new pantheon and see who the hell wins. And obviously it's going to be Kratos coming on top, but not without obvious pain. It's literally the Dragon Ball Z of video games. Kratos is literally the Goku of video games. With the exception, obviously, of Goku from Dragon Ball Z games. But in that aspect of everything that we just talked about. My PS5 came with a digital code of God of War Ragnarok, but I never played it. I think you should give it a try. Or if you give it a try, I would probably play the first game, because you're not gonna... It's just not gonna play the same if you play the first God of War from 2018 after Ragnarok. You're going to feel gimped. Like, God of War Ragnarok improves so much on the 2018 one that you simply cannot go back. I cannot go back to the 2018 version. As much as I want to check the story again, I just cannot. Like, it's just better. It's faster paced. You have the jumps, you have the leaps, you have the grapples. I just can't go back to 2018, and a lot of folks actually are on the same page. What else? What other reviews do we have? We're gonna check maybe one more critical review, because I think it's only fair. But I want to check in on the PC. PC has an 80 out of 10, and PS5 has 84. Xbox has 93 out of 10, which is crazy, but obviously the number of reviews are vastly different. So PS5 has the highest, which is interesting. We saw IGN's review, no need to check it again. Vandal. I mean, we of course went over the very positive at the beginning. We're gonna go over the very negative at the end. So game VG27. This is also an IGN owned company. So I think this is only fair to check out, since they obviously had a different direction. So many of Veilguard's best ideas feel like they struggle to get out the first gear, and those that do find it harder still to make it to third. In terms of positives and negatives, have they mentioned any? So it's just a general impression. Okay. It goes a little bit too deep, to be honest. It's a little bit too long. I don't want to read through all of it. But a lot of Dragon Age the Veilguard can be expressed by outlining its structure. In short, much of the setup here is lifted from the second and third Mass Effect titles as a base, with the icing concepts lifted from the Dragon Age entries. There's a hub zone where you can prep for missions and hang out with your party members, open-ended zones where you can shop, hang out, and trigger side quests, that somehow feel like a small slice of Inquisition Zone, and story-driven missions that are more directed and prescribed, each lively but enclosed roller coasters. Usually a couple of these missions pop into your journal in each chapter, meaning you have a choice of which to tackle first. Why does Xbox version have so few reviews? Likely maybe the codes most people requested maybe on the PlayStation 5, who knows. This is quite a break from Dragon Age Inquisition, the last title from the series. This was a full-on open-world affair and was arguably too big. I disagree with this. I love big open-world games, but it is what it is. The stripped-back approach here might ruffle some feathers as a regression, but here's the thing. It bloody well works. Those games I referenced came out over a decade ago, but there's an element of it ain't broke, don't fix it play here. It's compelling and it works. Perhaps most importantly, it's structured that BioWare implicitly understands because the studio essentially invented it. After the misfire of Andromeda and Anthem, this feels like a return to home with all the comfort that bequeaths. So this is not the first article that mentions the fact that this is a return to BioWare's roots. This is like the third article I see of BioWare going back to its roots. A return to home. Maybe even fourth. We basically saw a lot of these articles mentioning the same thing. But since the first title, Dragon Age has mudded around, experimenting with different battle formats, the Veilguard also draws from Mass Effect here. Single character control, snappy action combat, and ability to order companions to use special attacks that can combo together to devastating effects. We pretty much knew this. Swap out the third-person shooting of Mass Effect 2 and 3 for snappy melee action, and you've got the game, basically. Strangely, however, I felt this game always felt best when I stood back as a rogue and used my bow, but it has still plenty satisfying close combat for the most part. So yeah, I think that he refers to the Veilguard, the Veilguard rogue feeling better using with the bow. It depends. I think most of these reviewers didn't craft anything too good. With the practice strength of this cadence and setup, an awful lot of Veilguard works. I enjoy the cast of characters quite a lot. The callbacks to previous Dragon Age stories and crews never fail to delight. But like the brilliant skill system that's meshed with an enemy spread and encounter design that doesn't leverage its depth nearly enough. It feels like there's always some nasty caveat lurking in some darkened corner. It's rarely something big either, it's almost always something little. But to some extent, it's the little things that make up life and great games. Can they be more specific? This doesn't say anything. Can they be more specific? I felt like the combat, the build system looked a bit deeper than Inquisition. I think it looked a bit deeper when, at least on the first glance, but obviously they had a lot more hours than I did, so maybe I'm wrong on that. 2018 structure feels to creak, for instance, when you look at the design and structure of some of these linear levels. In the review period, I heard another critic describe them as Overwatch maps, and I think that's a little too harsh and hyperbolic, but I hold up the point with nary an objective. They almost universally feel rather boring. So this is another review calling the map design boring, which is one of the things I was afraid of. They almost universally feel rather boring, as well as combat encounters, puzzles, these missions and maps. But quickly you realize that it's going to be the same 2 or 3 formats of power cell, blight clearing, or beam pointing challenges over and over again. This is literally skill up, and Mr. Matty Plays also said the same thing. So puzzles are going to be extremely boring, and overall progression through the maps is going to be very repetitive. As stuff like this settles in, a real enthusiasm I had for the adventure of the Veilguard over the first 10 or so hours began to dull. This is yet another similar point to skill up. He also got bored pretty much after 10-20 hours. And it kind of goes on to explain similar things here. Any good RPG has side quests, so let's slip into this review too. I'm about to zoom into one specific and likely esoteric complaint that I nevertheless felt demonstrates something of what makes some of the Veilguard feels strangely off. There are beggars everywhere in towns in the game. Likewise, there are cats and dogs. You can chip a coin or two at the beggars, and in search of viral gold, you can pet the furry friends. But there's a strange fact to these interactions. They don't really do anything. I'm not saying every feature must have mad consequences, not everything must lead to a quest or what have you, but I mean that in my experience, this action appears to do nothing. So basically, all the interactions that you have with NPCs, besides the quest givers, besides pets, I guess, that you can obviously pet and scratch and interact with, they don't really lead to anywhere, which I guess is a given. So yeah, it was basically expected anyway. But the beggars and the dogs in particular react so little that I genuinely wonder if I had a bug where a reactive animation was failing to play, but other critics told me they experienced the same thing. The cats would at least purr, sound effect accompanied by a delightful controller rumble. Okay, so it's not even that there's no consequence to giving beggars gold or interacting with the creatures. It's that there's no feedback at all. Like, there's not even dialogues or sounds or anything. You don't even get the satisfaction of a wagging tail and the spin of excitement or a wave of thank you. Dogs lay there looking half dead. Your player character tosses a coin or rubs a hand into fur, and that is it. On one occasion, a companion had a line of dialogue addressing one beggar, but I couldn't actually figure out if this was a random ambient dialogue or triggered by my action. This disconnect is amusing Okay, basically you get the idea. There's no feedback to what you're doing here, so obviously it's just that. It's just a way to give the appearance that you can interact with the environment. I think that Outlaws was suffering from a similar issue. The game world just looked bland, boring, and dead. So that was basically it. So this is one of the interactions, but by the end of it, at the center of the plot of Dragon Age the Veilguard is Solas, the Dread Wolf, a party member in Inquisition. Solas finds himself in a curious position in this game. The player is asked to draw their own conclusion about him. Is he evil or misguided anti-hero? The truth, of course, is not so black and white. In a sense, Solas himself becomes an emblem for this game that is so much about him. I hope they don't spoil anything here, to be honest, because they kind of gave away a little bit too much. Like the Dreadwolf, Dragon Age the Veilguard is likely to be divisive. Some are inevitably going to view it as a heroic homecoming to BioWare, an example of the studio playing it to its greatest strengths, to its greatest hits, while gingerly... I can't read today, seriously. Treading into new areas. Others will inevitably dislike the choices made, half of this, part of that, never arguably forming a truly cohesive whole. Which is a damn shame. It's just a damn shame that they couldn't like pull off narratively. I'm not even sure what the conclusion to the story is. I don't even want to read it in fear that I might get spoiled. Many of these ideas feel like they struggle to get off the first gear, and those that do, okay, this is the conclusion from the title, simultaneously feeling polished to within an inch of its life in places and utterly half-baked in others. It's as baffling as it is engaging, as frustrating as it is fascinating. Okay, so that's basically BioWare the last time as well. That is basically BioWare pretty much with their last games as well, which is a damn shame. Yeah. That is Veilguard reviews, by the way. Right now, we're sitting at... I mean, you can pretty much see it on Metacritic. 84. Guess we weren't far off the mark. I said 85. It got an 84, but obviously it can change in the following days. So yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything we had to cover, all the reviews, going over them. Obviously, I recommend checking out the reviews and making your own opinions if you want to buy the game or not. For those of you who are asking or asked previously if I am planning to create content around it. I am going to do video guides and builds. I do want to do that because I think I'm just curious about where that goes. I want to see how this compares, for example, with Andromeda, which we also made some builds for. So that's the direction I want to bring this in. But for the time being, this is pretty much it with the stream. And again, I want to thank everybody who has been tuning in, and I hope you guys have an amazing day.